I realized that I was my parents' retirement plan. They didn't have one. And it's like, well, if I need to provide for my family and I need to provide for them, how do I do that?
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer. I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in. All right, welcome back, Freedom Point Podcast listeners. Thank you again for jumping into another episode of the Freedom Point. We're so glad you're here with us again today. I've got another amazing guest, William Parmer. William, welcome to the show.
I'm super excited to be here, Jeremy, and really looking forward to just sharing and hopefully inspiring your audience in real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely looking forward to that myself. William's a dynamic real estate investor, a coach for massive passive income. He co-hosts the Breakthrough Investor podcast. He's an entrepreneur. He began his journey back when he was 18, when he enlisted in the U.S. Marines, where he served for nearly 7.5 years, balancing active duty and reserve components while contributing to his family's business. Shortly after, William immersed himself in real estate, rapidly achieving, get this, $2,000 in passive income monthly from strategic real estate investments. William primarily invests in Airbnb, long-term properties, mobile home parks, and more. William, you're a distinguished real estate investor. Certainly appreciate the tremendous value that we're set to bring our listening audience today. Maybe if you can kind of help us learn a little bit more about you, your journey, what you're currently focused on today, et cetera.
Sure, awesome. Thank you so much for that intro. Distinguished is quite the word, so I'll try to live up to it. Yeah, so my real estate journey really kind of started about 4 years ago, probably early 2020. I was actually had left the military at this time and was back home and had actually left the family business, went to the family business of professional house painting actually, and couldn't stand it based on just doing what I was doing before in the military. Just had a hard time with that. And so my wife actually encouraged me to join law enforcement. And that's what I did. So I joined law enforcement and was a police officer for several years. And then one evening, it was during COVID, so it was a little bit frustrating to do my job. I had just been released on my own and was really able to go out and just be a cop and protect people around me. And this was the area in which I live. So, but I wasn't allowed to do anything because COVID happened. And so I realized that I was sitting at night for a 12-hour shift in my car, not learning anything, just listening to music, maybe picking up a book every once in a while. But I couldn't really read books because I needed to be situationally aware. And so I didn't want to immerse myself in a book. So I started listening to podcasts. And my dad years ago had purchased some single family homes, but he bought them wrong and had them for a little while, dabbled with that. And I was like, well, I think this might be a viable option for potential income. And I realized I wasn't going to retire as a police officer. And then I just did a Spotify search and found Master Passive Income, which is Dustin Heiner's podcast, and really jived with his personality and his goals in life. Like him, I'm a Christian. I'm a father, and so he was investing to have time with his family, not really to make oodles of money, but to just have time with his family. And so I was like, well, I agree with that. And so that started my journey, and I became a student, started investing from there.
Oh, that's great. So you've got this, background, going from military, transitioning into the family painting business, transitioning into law enforcement, transitioning into, sticking earbuds in your ears and filling your brain with, real estate knowledge. So I really appreciate you kind of sharing that background. Just out of curiosity, and by the way, number one, for sure, thank you so much for your, service to our country. And yeah, and out of curiosity, what motivated you to join the Marines specifically at the age of 18?
Well, I would have joined sooner, except my mom wouldn't sign the paperwork for me to go at 17, so I had to wait. But I was a kid when 9/11 happened, and I watched that happen on live television. It was like my mom just completely forgot that there were a bunch of kids in the room, and she couldn't turn it off. Like so many people were captured by that entire incident, and I watched Marines invade Fallujah and saw the news coverage and things like that. And at a very young age, I decided that's what I wanted to do. And so I worked as much as I could, didn't pay much attention to school until I was about probably 13 or 14. And then I really doubled down and because I knew I wanted to enlist. And then that's what I did.
No, it's great. Well, again, I appreciate your service to our country. I am curious, back in your law enforcement days, what made you decide that you wanted to all of the sudden become passionate and intrigued, with real estate investing?
Yeah, that was an interesting transition. So I grew up with my dad was self-employed. I'm one of seven, so they have seven kids, and he never had a retirement. Worked really hard to provide for all of us. Now we never wanted for anything, and if we did, I don't recall. And I realized that I was my parents' retirement plan. They didn't have one. And my mom and my dad will both be 69 this year. And I was like, well, if I need to provide for my family and I need to provide for them, how do I do that? And real estate kind of came on my radar because of what my dad had done in the past and the podcast. And so I decided that this seemed like a pretty good avenue, especially if I could do it without having to do a lot of the management, which is not something I want to do. I don't mind getting down and dirty in the beginning, but I don't want to manage it long term. And the passive income, once I learned that it was taxed completely different than typical earned pay, it's like, well, I really like this. And then that's how that happened.
Okay, great. What just also kind of curious to know, back when you first got started in real estate investing, what was your first real estate deal and what key lessons did you take through that investing experience?
Well, first off, having a coach and a mentor for starting out is absolutely worth it. I don't think I would have done it, and I know I wouldn't have been successful if I didn't have that. Uh, but the first property, now I'm in Southwest Virginia, so my area is particularly expensive to buy rental properties. It's pretty hard for cash flow. I don't invest for appreciation. I want cash flow only. And when you start investing, I think that's the best way to start is to invest for cash flow. So I in master passive income, I learned how to go outside of where I live, outside of the state, and actually look for other areas. So I ended up settling just south of Cleveland, Ohio, for my first house, and it was a single family home, just under 1,000 square feet. It was listed for 88,000, right around there, if I recall. And I negotiated down. My first offer was like $54,000, and once I started negotiating, I actually walked on that deal, I think twice, and then they came back and signed it, and the purchase price was 64.5. Um, so I did that, put a little bit of money in it, and then had to manage the rehab myself because I had found a property manager to manage that, which is what we teach at Master Passive Income. But when it came time to actually manage it, they didn't they didn't respond well. They had all these hidden fees, which I at the time I didn't realize that I wasn't vetting them very well to figure out what those fees were. Now I'm much more versed in that. And that's one of those things we teach our students particularly. So I ended up firing them, having to get another property manager, and I managed the rehab myself over the phone, which is a pretty daunting thing. And I was working full time at this point uh, in a debt construction company. And so I was doing all of that. And so that was one of those huge things I learned right off the bat was property management is absolutely key for that particular way of investing. And once I got that, management was sorted out, it rented out, and it cash flows every month. I get maybe one phone call to fix something minor since maybe once a year, but it cash flows every month, and it's been a great property. And I definitely would invest there again.
Yeah, I really appreciate you unpacking a few things there, William. Obviously, it's nice to know that you also got your kind of teeth cut in the single family fix and flip space, like myself. But really appreciate you also highlighting the importance of having a coach, somebody there that's willing to or able to, walk you through the process. Maybe somebody that's kind of been there, done that before. I think it can help really avoid a lot of the potential, big mistakes that might exist out there. Certainly, we're going to still make some of the minor mistakes, but having a coach that can help you kind of de-risk really that opportunity and tell you what's best to focus on. Also, appreciate you highlighting the importance of cash flow. Certainly, it's nice to chase after that potential equity upside, but when you invest in real estate assets that pay regular, consistent, monthly or quarterly cash flows, you're locking in that gain, you're locking in that income, month after month, as opposed to just kind of hoping that the market improves or, through a forced, value add approach that there's some increased amount of equity, to pull out of the asset, when it goes full cycle. Is your plan now to continue to scale up and grow up your single family portfolio?
Yeah, so I've kind of shifted a little bit for 2025. So since that purchase, I've had a couple other single family home purchases, but I ended up meeting a private money lender that is local to me and knew of my family. And we ended up going to have coffee, and he actually helped me purchase my small mobile home park that I got several years ago. And now looking back, I realize he was absolutely crazy to lend me money on that, but because I bought it probably $60,000 overpriced. But that was one of those learning things. And so 2025, I'm really going to focus more on smaller mobile home parks in the area, the surrounding areas that I live, and mainly because the management thing with those. I have a manager that manages mine, and he said that they would totally be willing to manage more of them. So now that I have the management sorted out, I'm going to look in the surrounding areas and try to kind of target that in smaller multifamily. But again, if a good single family comes on my radar, somebody sends it to me, or I just happen to look, I'm absolutely gonna get one of those. I have no qualm with getting single families as long as they cash flow.
Yeah, I appreciate your perspective there on diversification and just kind of curious, how do you approach the decision to diversify your portfolio versus specializing in one particular, asset class niche?
So there's I'm sure you're familiar. People say shiny object syndrome, right? Oh, there's this. Oh, there's this. That looks cool. That sounds awesome. You listen to a podcast. You go to a real estate conference. Whatever it is. And I have to admit, I have a hard time staying in one particular lane. So, but as far as my diversification mainly happened because it just landed in my lap. If there's one thing I succeed at particularly well, I think that is engaging in conversations with people and kind of telling them what I'm doing and what I would like to do. And then once you do that as an investor, deals just kind of start coming your way. I have not had to work super hard with finding deals. There are plenty out there all over Zillow, Realtor, Crexy, LoopNet, you name it. There's deals to be had everywhere. But mine didn't come at a my diversification or decision to do that didn't really come because of a specific event or a specific time. It was mainly because I had a hard time staying in my lane. And 2025, my goal is to stay in my lane, which would be single family homes and mobile home parks, and just stick with those two since I understand both of those fairly well at this point.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And sometimes the shiny object syndrome can be both a blessing, and a curse. I have this feeling that you and I both share ADHD together, which is
Probably so.
where I get my shiny object syndrome from. But the blessing side of that is it allows you to experience different things, and that may be for me specifically investing in different, asset classes, outside of your traditional single family or multifamily, and really has allowed me to get exposed to and learn, about those different asset classes to, invest in myself. And then obviously, if it makes sense for us to partner with investors, we bring those opportunities, to the forefront of our investing community.
I'm Zach Haptonstall, CEO and co-founder of Rise 48 Equity. Our goal is to help you protect and grow your wealth by investing in large multifamily apartment buildings. We do all the work as far as sourcing these large apartment buildings from the brokers, doing all of the on-site management with our vertically integrated property management company, doing all the renovations with our vertically integrated construction company. We completely rebrand the exteriors. We will renovate the interiors to our full platinum level scope, which increases the value of the asset to get that profit margin for the investor. If you'd like to learn about how you can partner with us on these exciting opportunities, and go to our website and set up a call with our team.
My next kind of question for you, William, is what does being successfully unemployed mean to you, and how has that changed your life?
So I love this question. I love wearing Dustin's successfully unemployed shirts everywhere. It sparks the most interesting conversations. Um, Successfully unemployed, I believe, really is different for every single person, which is why I'm super happy you asked me that question. But for me, successfully unemployed is getting to make my own schedule, getting to do what I would like to do without the pressures of I have to do this so that way I can pay my bills. Um, like I said before, I'm not out to make oodles and like millions of dollars. I don't care about having a Ferrari or a jet. I just want time with my family and to be able to raise my kids the way that I would like to raise them and be able to help people succeed with their own version of success. Um, so it's not really one thing in particular, I would say, but successfully unemployed for me is really just having the time in which to do the things that I feel led to do, called to do, and just enjoy doing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your perspective on that because a lot of times people get hung up on this, concept of financial freedom and financial independence. When more at the end of the day, what you're explaining is it's more of a time freedom thing. It's more of a legacy freedom, an impact freedom, a location freedom, right? It's not that you're looking to get rich quick and amass this, big, you know, uh, bank account, so to speak. It's more so that you can spend time, with the people that you love the most. And it does remind me a little bit of the story of Solomon in Ecclesiastes. I mean, that was a guy who, was the wisest and wealthiest king in the land, right? This guy had everything. And he got to a point in his life where, he threw up his hands and it's all meaningless, right? It's all chasing after the wind, kind of a thing. So it's not always about, having the biggest house or the biggest bank account or that, Lamborghini sports car. It's really more about, the amount of time that we do have left here on earth and the impact and the people that we're able to spend that remaining time with.
Absolutely. I think as a believer, my goal is to point people towards Jesus, but to also really bless people. I have a skill sets in like I own my own handyman company, and that's what I actually live off of is the income from that because I don't live off of my real estate income yet. I'm still building that. So um, one of my end goals is to have a nice truck and trailer full of tools so I can hear somebody needs something and then I can go and just go do it and not need to worry about I need to collect so much money for doing this job or I need to make money on it at all, and then I can just go and do the work and bless them and move on. So that's one of those other time things that I would love to be able to do is have the time to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so powerful. As a coach of master passive income, what are some of the most common challenges you see new investors facing, and how do you help them overcome those challenges?
Buying the first house. Um, Getting the first one is absolutely the hardest one you will do. After that, it really starts to work itself out. You start understanding the terms and how to do the financing. But really, it's getting over the fear of maybe buying a house that is several states away from where you live and you've never seen it. Like I joke that the one I have in Ohio, the only reason I know it, besides the fact that money shows up on my account, is the fact that I had the outside painted a different color and it's changed on the Google Maps. It's changed the color on there since I bought it. So I'm like, oh, okay, I did pay for something that actually shows up. But buying that first property is probably the hardest thing, and really showing students the method of doing it, like building the business first and not just going out and saying we're going to buy a property and then find a property manager. That's completely backwards. And the way that we want people to do it is create the LLC, get your registered agent, do all of that stuff. It's pretty simple, and Dustin has a great walkthrough of how to do it step by step. And then we look at, okay, where's the areas of the country that you should be investing in? And we have some lists of some areas that are typically pretty good, and we have students that invest there. And once I get an area, we focus on finding a property manager first. We don't want you to make offers on houses and all this other stuff until you have a property manager that will actually manage the property and you know what their fees are. And then you can take all of that into account and you can send them the properties and say, hey, will you manage this? What will it rent for? And that will dictate your numbers and your offer for the property. And from there, once you get the first one, we like to have people buy several in that location, because if you have the business there, you have the property manager, you have the contacts with the real estates, the handyman companies, contractors, etc. Why would you pick up and completely go to a different area? You might as well buy 4 or 5 in that area. And we like people to find, we help our students find places that have inventory, which would be multiple houses that kind of meet the criteria. So that way they can build up several of them without having to build the business in another location.
Yeah, it makes total sense to me to have the right, systems, processes, suppliers, ready to go before you get into the business. I think that will help people to not have to make, such reactive decisions, but decisions that are more based upon, the experiences and kind of, what we know works versus what maybe doesn't work, kind of a thing. So appreciate you sharing that. What's your own personal, professional vision for the future, both in terms of your portfolio and the impact that you want to make on others as a coach and an entrepreneur?
Wow, that's a question I haven't had before. That's a good one. Um, I would say that I want to grow my portfolio enough to where I just have time to focus on coaching more students and have more time to go to real estate conferences and actually be coached myself, because there's so many ways to do real estate. I know so many people that invest in notes, guys that do raw land, guys that do multifamily. Syndication's not really one that I'm super interested in doing, but I wouldn't mind learning about it. Um, I think once I get to the point where I'm living off of my real estate income, that is where I want to spend the majority of time. My time is improving, not necessarily, I'll keep growing my portfolio, but I want to have a season where I just learn a whole lot and continue to help other people in their journey with investing is really what I want to do, and the direction I want to go.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, 2025 for William is going to be marked with, the pursuit for knowledge, the pursuit for, enhancing, upgrading your network, right? And then obviously, your pursuit to help others. What would be maybe 1 or 2 different ways that our listening audience can connect with you to learn more about what you're up to?
So I'm on LinkedIn, William CARY Parmer on LinkedIn.com. I do have an Instagram. I will be the first one to tell you I am hardly ever on that thing. You can send me a message. I do check that occasionally. And then on masterpassiveincome.com, if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, there is a link there. You can go on there as well.
Great. Well, we'll put those links in the show notes for the episode today. William, just really appreciate the tremendous value that you've brought our listening audience.
I'm happy to do it, and hopefully inspired somebody to get out and do real estate or keep doing it.
That's right. And listening audience, thank you again for joining another episode of The Freedom Point. We look forward to having you join us on the next episode.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast, powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.